A man sits calmly in his Roman villa, veins opened by his own hand, as he prepares for a state-mandated death. He speaks not in fear, but in philosophy. His former student, the Emperor Nero, has ordered it. This is the final moment of Seneca's life. A philosopher facing his fate. The final breath begins. In 65 AD, Rome was under Emperor Nero's tightening grip. A plot against the emperor had been uncovered, the Piso conspiracy. In the wave of accusations that followed, one name quietly surfaced: Lucius Annaeus Seneca. Seneca, once Nero's advisor and mentor, was implicated. There would be no trial, no defense. A messenger delivered his fate, a command from the emperor to end his public role in a traditional and solemn manner. The philosopher in chains of power, Seneca, was more than a writer. He was once considered Rome's moral guide. Appointed to mentor the young Nero, Seneca hoped to shape a just ruler. But over time, the boy he taught became unpredictable. Seneca wrote of balance and reason, yet found himself in a world of politics, wealth, and ambition. He stood between philosophy and survival in an empire that respected neither. A dangerous dance with Nero. Seneca tried to leave public life. He offered his fortune to Nero and requested retirement, hoping to live quietly. But Nero refused to let him go. To the emperor, Seneca's reputation made him dangerous. A respected voice outside the palace could spark dissent. And so, staying or leaving both carried risk. The Piso conspiracy. When Gaius Calpurnius Piso conspired to replace Nero, the emperor's response was swift and severe. Dozens were implicated. Some were involved, others were simply convenient. Seneca's name appeared in the investigation. Whether there was proof or not, Nero had decided Seneca's time had come. The sentence delivered Nero sent no soldiers. No trial was held. Instead, a formal message arrived, a directive for Seneca to carry out what was then viewed as a customary end to political service in ancient Rome. Seneca read the letter and responded with quiet composure, facing the moment with the same resolve he had long written about. The final act. Following Roman custom, Seneca began the solemn process expected of those in his position. When it progressed slowly, he sought other traditional methods to fulfill the emperor's directive. His wife, Paulina, wished to share in his final moment, but was later aided and survived. Despite the gravity of the moment, Seneca remained composed. He reflected on the Stoic values he had taught: control over emotion, acceptance of fate, and the pursuit of wisdom. The voice that wouldn't die. In his final moments, Seneca continued to speak. His final reflections were not filled with fear or panic, but with thought. A calm meditation on the nature of life and its inevitable end. He was a teacher until the end, offering insight not only through his writings, but through the way he met his final chapter. A philosopher's exit. When other methods did not progress as expected, Seneca was moved to a warm bath in accordance with custom. There, in quiet reflection, he passed away. He did not cry out. He did not curse the emperor. He accepted the role fate had given him. A philosopher completing his life as he had lived it, contemplating the meaning of existence. From Córdoba to the capital, born in Córdoba, Spain, Seneca came from a family of writers and thinkers. His talent brought him to Rome, where he gained fame as a playwright, philosopher, and eventually political advisor. He walked a delicate path, advocating for virtue while navigating the political realities of imperial Rome. The emperor's tutor, Seneca, became Nero's tutor when the future emperor was still a boy. Handpicked by Agrippina, Nero's mother, Seneca was chosen to instill values of restraint and wisdom. At first, Nero showed promise, but the pressures of power, combined with ambition and fear, transformed him into a ruler Seneca could no longer guide. the fall from grace. As Nero grew more authoritarian, Seneca tried to withdraw. His efforts were seen as suspicious. Nero began to isolate himself from former advisors, and Seneca's role diminished. By the time of the conspiracy, Seneca was no longer in Nero's inner circle, but he was still a symbol. And symbols were dangerous. Seneca, in exile. Earlier in life, Seneca had faced exile. Under Emperor Claudius, he was banished for alleged misconduct. He spent years in Corsica, writing and reflecting. Exile became a turning point, deepening his Stoic beliefs and shaping his later works. When he returned to Rome, he came back with sharper insight, but also with caution. The philosopher's contradictions. Seneca's critics pointed out the gap between his teachings and his lifestyle. He advocated for simplicity, yet accumulated wealth. He promoted virtue, yet operated in an environment of compromise. Was he flawed? Certainly. But perhaps those contradictions made him more human, not less sincere. A man of letters. Seneca's writings spanned tragedy and philosophy. His plays explored human emotion, revenge, and the consequences of power. His letters offered guidance for personal growth, resilience, and facing adversity. These writings outlasted his political influence and remain widely studied today. The shadow of Nero. As Nero's behavior became more erratic, Seneca's presence was a silent rebuke. The student had surpassed the teacher in power, but not in wisdom. Eventually, Nero saw in Seneca not just an old advisor, but a reminder of what he could have been, and chose not to be. The Stoic who couldn't escape Seneca accepted what he could not change. He met his final moments with calm, just as he advised others to do. His death was a test of the very principles he had spent his life defending. Even as the political world turned unpredictable, Seneca stood by the idea that one could maintain inner peace. Words that endured. Seneca's writings, essays, dialogues, and letters continued to circulate long after his passing. He was read by emperors, monks, and scholars for generations. His emphasis on ethics, self-discipline, and mortality inspired countless thinkers across Europe and beyond. A legacy remembered to some, Seneca's end was noble, a philosopher practicing what he preached. To others, it was the final act of a man too close to power for too long. His death, though quiet, became a conversation that outlived the emperor who directed it. The cost of wisdom. Seneca's life raises eternal questions. Can philosophy survive politics? Can a thinker stay true to ideals while navigating power? Can integrity and compromise coexist? His writings offer no easy answers, but they do show a man wrestling honestly with them. The aftermath. Nero's reign continued for a few more years, but his influence declined. Eventually, he too faced political consequences and met an end shaped by fear and loss of control. In time, Renaissance thinkers rediscovered Seneca's texts, and modern philosophers debated his life. His final chapter became part of a larger story, the story of how thought can endure even after power fades. The final lesson. Seneca believed that true control came not from commanding others, but from mastering oneself. In the end, he proved that belief through action. He left behind not just pages, but a model of how to face adversity with dignity and how to turn even a final moment into a lasting message. The final word. Seneca's life was not perfect. He made compromises, lived with contradictions, and faced consequences. But in the end, he embraced his fate with composure and clarity. Now, it's your turn to decide. Was Seneca a flawed idealist, a compromised thinker, or a philosopher who did the best he could in a world built on power? Leave your thoughts in the comments. And if you value stories that explore the human side of history, the courage, the contradictions, and the consequences, subscribe to Histoeureka. Because the past is not just about battles and emperors, it's about ideas, and those never die.